Hi there. Today I'm going to show you how to create a standard operating procedure, sometimes called a SOP or an SOP. Now, before I share my screen and talk you through how to do that, I wanted to just make it clear what an SOP actually is. And essentially, it's a way to document the recurring tasks within your business. So think about it as a how-to guide that goes into the detail of how you do that specific task. Now, one thing I also wanted to make clear, because if you don't have this in the back of your mind, things can get confusing pretty quickly. So when you've got these recurring tasks within your business, you need to think about them as split into two separate parts. There's the how-to, which is your SOP, but then there's the project management side. Now, this is a case of who does what by when. Okay, so you've got your procedure, and then project management. Now, for very simple tasks in your business, it may be that you can combine the two and have them, say, within one document within Google Drive. But for more complicated tasks, it would get confusing very quickly because you're kind of trying to squish too much into one document. So you need to separate them out and have something, say, like Asana, free version will do, or ClickUp is another good one, as your project management tool. And it's got each of the steps, each of the what's, who does the what's, and by when. And then you could link that through to your SOPs, which you could store in something like Google Drive. So it's just bear that in mind so that you don't get confused about what you're actually trying to put into your SOP. Now, I'm going to share my screen and actually show you how I would create a standard operating procedure for a client. So first up, start with a blank document. Now, what I'm going to show you today is a simplified version of an SOP. We're going to do the title and then we're going to do the procedure. If I was doing a full SOP with a client, there'd be a little bit more at the front. We would talk about who has responsibility for this particular task. We talk about the why of what we're doing in this task and a bit more about the what. But for today's purposes, we want to keep it nice and simple. Now, the first thing, the title, that's actually really important in terms of organizing your SOPs, because you could, if you start calling things all sorts of different names, it becomes confusing for you to find things, and when you bring on a new team member, for them to understand what things are about. So the simplest way to do it is always to have SOP at the start, because you may have other templates within your business, like template emails, that sort of thing. And we want to make sure it's just nice and clear. And what we're going to do together today is we are going to look at the how-to of creating a featured image for a blog post. Now, featured image, if that's not a phrase that is familiar to you, it's what WordPress calls the image that you put with your blog. If you use Wix or Squarespace, it may not be called featured image, but for me, I use WordPress, so that's what I'm going to talk about today. So I would want to say SOP and then create featured image for blog post. So it's as simple as that. It's really clear. If I gave this to someone who knew nothing about my business, but a little bit about WordPress, they'd be like, yep, great. I know what to expect from this document. And the clearer we can make things and the less jargony, it just makes it much easier when we have team members or if we're doing a project with someone and delegating things. Now, you can make these as branded as you like, you can change the color, whatever you want. And one thing I recommend is that you actually have an SOP template so that each time you actually have the same style. And that can just be, a handy little tip there. So if I'm just making this example up because I'm going to refer to stock images within this example. I don't use stock images, I use my own photos. But this is just an example of what you could do. So you want to think about, okay, if I'm making that featured image, what are all the steps that I'm actually going to have to go to? So let's say the first one might be go to your stock image site and choose image that contains one of, say, our brand colors. Now you also might want to have here a URL link to that stock image site. And if it's one that you do as paid stock images, then you could, have reference here to how you log in and the login details. Maybe it's all saved within LastPass, which is a really handy tool for storing and sharing logins to sites. And also you want to think about the fact that you want to, maybe that'll be 2 steps, choose images that contain one of your brand colors or maybe have your brand feel. And so again, you could have here a link to, say, your branding document with that sort of thing in it. Or if you're looking for something, a particular sunshine yellow, then have that yellow within this document so that whoever is looking for that image can know what they're looking for really, really easily. And okay, so we've got our image, and so what we now want to do is download it to our stock images folder. Now, if you are using something like Google Drive, I'd actually have a link to the folder here. So it's really simple. So whoever is actually following these instructions doesn't have to go somewhere else and find that folder, doesn't have to waste time. You've actually thought all of this through as you've gone through your SOP. So I would, have right here the link to that folder. Then the next thing is, okay, so we've got the stock image, but it is way too big. So we want to resize it. And you'll have a certain pixel size. Maybe it's 1200 by 450. That may be a crazy size. I didn't actually check. But you want to be specific. So what do you need for your particular website? What's going to look good? And maybe the way that you resize is by using the Paint Edit tool. That's just a very simple way to resize something. Now, with SOPs, yes, at the moment it's a lot of writing, but you can also use video to create your how-tos. So maybe here we'd be thinking, okay, so the Paint Edit tool, instead of typing out, you go here, you click on this, let's actually create a really short video and pop that in here. So you might just have one note of an instruction video for Paint. So if someone had never used Paint before, they could follow the video, or if they hadn't done a featured image for a while, they don't have to remember and kind of figure it out. They just watch this video and it's nice and easy and it's all there. And then we come down, okay, so we've now resized that image and we want to save it somewhere else because we don't want stock images, the big ones, in the same folder as the resized ones because it'll start getting confusing. So we want to save that resized image to a stock images folder. But this time it's going to be called blog templates because that image that we've got that we've resized, maybe we're going to use it again, and then that way we can actually be repurposing the image, use it again in 2 or 3 months time and not have to go through the same procedure again. And so again, for that folder, make it easy for whoever is doing this work and have the link to that folder right then. Then maybe the next thing you do once you've got that beautiful image is that you like to put the title of the blog post over the top of the image, and you do that using Canva. And so you would upload that resized image to Canva. And here's where the power of videos can come in again. Maybe here we're going to do an instruction video on how to actually put the text across in Canva. And I know this is quite a simple task, but you have to think, how does it look for your business? Because that's the point of SOPs. We are documenting the way that you do business, not someone else. So you might have particular fonts that you use, a particular font size. You may have, just the style that you want. So within that video, you might actually even have some blog templates already in Canva. That's what I do. I have a range of images and I already have just some mock text on each one with the color that I want and the size that I want. So it's really nice and easy for me to to go in and copy and paste the title. So you might have something similar. So within that instruction video, you'd step your way through to how you do your images within Canva. And then we'll come down, okay, we've done that, but we do want to make sure that the person who's doing this remembers that the title of the Canva image, so what it's saved as, is the same as the blog post image, because that'll help our SEO. So we just want a little reminder here. Ensure the title image is the same as the blog post title. And that's just a handy reminder to make sure we don't have to be changing names later on. And so now that we've got our image, it's looking great, we want to download that new graphic to a folder. And so this time we're going to call it blog images final folder. And so, and with the name, I talked about the naming of SOPs, making sure it's consistent. The same is true for your folders. Make them really obvious what the folders are. Some of my clients, when I help them with their file structures, I don't even know what their folders are. It's some mysterious letters that are meant to mean something. And that's fine when you're starting business because you know what it is. But when you bring on other team members, they're not going to have any clue. So make it just really simple. I like to think about, would my young nieces, if they looked at my file structure, would they know with no background knowledge? Would they just, yeah, they could figure that out pretty smartly. And so, and then we go, and then we download the new graphic to our blog images folder. So that is, excuse me, that is our SOP for creating a stock image. It can be that short. We've got all our how-tos, all our steps, a couple of videos in there, and then we're done. So as you can see, it's quite straightforward. And I know it's not everyone's idea of fun. Let's be honest about that. And you might be thinking to yourself, man, okay, that's fine for like such a short SOP, but you're feeling overwhelmed because you've got a lot of those tasks in your business. So I think it's important to remember a couple of things. First up, you only need to do these SOPs once. You're not going to be creating the same SOP week after week after week. There is some work involved, and that's just the reality, of running these businesses. But you do it once, and then maybe you'll review them every 6 months, but you do the work once. So just think about that, because it can kind of take away some of the overwhelm. Second point, you do not have to create your SOPs all in the next week. Again, that can create a lot of overwhelm. You start with the ones that you use the most, or the ones that are revenue generating, or the ones that your VA is going to need who's coming on. So it is a big project to do all of your SOPs, but just chunk it down into the pieces that need to be done now, the pieces that are going to be most important for your business. And then also bear in mind, see, the reason I really like SOPs is they're kind of the output, they're the end product. What happens while I'm working with a client and documenting the SOP is I'm actually looking for ways that they can streamline or simplify their process. Because, sometimes you start doing a thing, you start doing a task and you do it a certain way, you kind of don't know any better, you just do it. And you get busy and you don't have time to actually look at and think, actually, is this task, am I doing it in the best way possible? So when you're actually creating your SOPs, it is a great chance to step back and to come, up out of the detail a little bit and think about, is this actually the best way that I can be doing things? Like with that stock, with creating the featured image, one instant improvement there would be batch the finding of those images. So instead of every week going in and finding a new image for stock images, which can actually take a lot of time, go on once, spend an hour, find 10 photos, and then you're good for the next 2.5 months. And it's actually stepping back and taking some time to think through your process means that when you're actually creating an SOP, you're quite sneakily streamlining and simplifying the way that you do business as well. So bear that in mind. The documenting might feel, a little dull, a little boring, but actually it's the end product of that whole process. And then I think the last thing to remember is you don't have to do all of this by yourselves. You can have someone like me guiding you through how to do your SOPs, taking away some of that heavy lifting. I mean, how would you feel if you and I had a conversation about your client onboarding and then I go away and write it all up and do the videos? You know, so there are ways that you can take that heavy lifting as such off your plate and pop it onto someone else's. So let me know if you've got any questions about creating SOPs or where to store them. I really like talking about this kind of stuff, as you can tell. So do let me know if you've got any questions.